Hey, welcome. It's Brian, and today we're going to talk about my top 5 prog rock guitar players. Now, most of these players kind of originate from the 70s, and that's kind of where my comfort zone is with prog rock. I definitely listen to some prog metal and kind of newer prog players, but in general, these are the ones we'll all know about and are loved by guitar fans in general. So, number one on that list is Martin Barre, who I think gets some credit for how great Jethro Tull was. I'm not completely sure how much writing he did for Jethro Tull, but all I know is his guitar parts are iconic and heavy and really made a lot of those songs kind of come to life. And as we know, Ian Anderson kind of handled a lot of the acoustic guitar playing, and in his own right is an incredible player and obviously a very talented songwriter. And obviously, they are one of my favorite bands in that prog rock genre, the 70s, kind of the sweet spot for me, like I said at the beginning. And so I just think Martin, I love the earlier records. I believe he was on the second record. Was that Stand Up was his first record? I can't exactly remember, but then I love stuff like all the way through Broadsword and the Beast and even Crest of the Knave, where he really kind of took the energy up, was doing a lot of kind of whammy bar stuff. And I wouldn't call it heavy metal, although they won that Grammy for it the year after it was released instead of Metallica or whatever that controversy was. But anyway, I actually like that record quite a bit. Some really interesting, glassy, clean guitar tones on it. And Broadsword and the Beast is kind of one of those records that's like it's not a guilty pleasure. I think it's one of the best Jethro Tull albums. So next on the list is Robert Fripp, who is one of my top 5 guitar players of all time. I first heard about him in 1980 when Discipline came out. Was a huge fan of that record and the 80s, King Crimson for sure. And then kind of worked backwards into the 70s. And with Court of the Crimson King coming out in 69, I love those first 2 records, Court of the Crimson King, Wake of Poseidon, and then if we jump to Lark's Tongues and Aspic, those final 3 with Bill Bruford and John Wenton, those are some of my favorite records of all time. And then I moved into the Frippertronic stuff with Let the Power Fall, an incredible record, and the records he did with Eno, and we can just go on and on and on. The League of Crafty Guitarist, all of these things. So Robert has done a lot of things that I've always appreciated, whether he was a sideman with the Talking Heads or David Bowie or whoever, David Sylvian. Those records are great. So I am just a really huge fan of Robert, and he's been a big influence on me as well. So Robert Fripp. Next on the list is Alan Holdsworth, which might be some debatable moments whether he's a prog rock guitar player or what, but I'm definitely talking about his kind of stints with Tempest and Soft Machine, and of course UK and Bill Bruford's band. Those I consider prog rock, although they are getting close, especially the Bruford stuff, getting to like a kind of a jazz rock fusion thing, but I'm going to call it prog rock for this. So some of my favorite guitar tones are those 70s Alan Holdsworth guitar leads and solos and all of that. Just an incredible player. And he was playing stuff that I could definitely relate to more. An overdriven tone, and obviously had all that technique, but still he was kind of refining it. And to be honest, there wasn't 10,000 chords in every song, so I really appreciated him being a sideman quite a bit, to be honest. So I love that era of Alan. So I'm going to say he's a great prog rock guitar player as well as one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Next is Alex Lifeson, who I knew about before Robert Fripp, and although maybe not as big of an influence musically, I am a huge Rush fan, and ironically, I never saw them live. So that's a huge bummer for sure. But starting with Fly By Night all the way to, I think the last record I bought was Power Windows. I kind of don't really listen to anything after Power Windows, and I don't even listen to that. I think I stop at Grace Under Pressure. But man, that body of work between Fly By Night and Grace Under Pressure are incredible. The amount of variation, the amount of heaviness, the amount of different approaches that Alex brought to the guitar, whether it was playing kind of classical guitar-esque parts in certain songs, or just the heavy stuff in Hemispheres, those great kind of odd time licks that he had, or riffs. They're kind of more like riffs, which is a big part of his DNA. To the basically the second side of Caress of Steel with the Necromancer and Rivendell and all of that whole second side. Some of the most incredibly in-depth, beautiful music ever. So Alex Lifeson, whether it's those kind of ringing, arpeggiated chords to kind of the singing, kind of blues-based, some kind of chromaticism, pentatonic work that he is great at. Definitely a great guitar player and one of my favorites for sure. Next on the list is Steve Howe, who I can't say is necessarily a big influence on me, but he definitely brought so many interesting concepts to guitar and then prog rock, and being part of one of the most important prog rock bands, that of course is Yes. Those records, they'll stand for the rest of time. I mean, whether it's Close to the Edge, and I'm a huge fan of Tales of the Topographic Oceans, or even Drama. I think for Steve, I kind of stop at Drama, and maybe let's throw in Yes Magnification as a record I really like that Steve played on. But if you think about that kind of the sweet spot, again, for me, the 70s, his playing, whether it was semi-classically influenced or kind of like a Chet Atkins approach, just these big chords, and always, for the most part, playing clean. He rarely used overdrive. It wasn't until later. He does a lot on Drama and maybe on Relayer a little bit, but for the most part, a very clean player. So always impressive to kind of have that amount of chops and that kind of dexterity and be in a huge rock band and play with such a clean signal. So an incredible player. So my top 5 prog rock players of all time that play guitar is as follows. Martin Barr from Jethro Tull, Robert Fripp, Alan Holdsworth, Alex Lifeson, and Steve Howe. I am Brian. Please like, subscribe, and comment. See you soon.